Let's clap to sync audio. We just clapped in unison there. That was cool.
That was great. That was probably my favourite part about the podcast.
The 10 seconds of this podcast.
That won't air because it's prior to the podcast.
No, I'll put this in.
Okay.
Yeah. Welcome to the show. This is a podcast that me and Jess are starting. This is Jess.
Hi, I'm Jess. This is Brayden.
Yeah.
Brandos
has been a new nickname that's been coming about lately. I don't know how I feel about that one. It's cool. I think being given a nickname is always cool because it's like a sign of like we've come up with something for you. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. Well, most of my life, the name I mainly go by is a nickname because it's just a contraction of my full name.
Oh, wow. Oh, Jessica,
yeah.
Jess. Yeah.
Yeah, but nobody calls me Jessica except my mum when she's mad at me. And it's almost weird to hear someone saying your full name because you're like, that's not me, but it is you.
You've lived your whole life being only called your nickname.
Pretty much. I've always been a Jess.
Wow.
Yeah, I prefer it.
Yeah, and it's like Benjamin and Ben. It's like Michael and Mike.
Yeah.
Or Mikey.
Or Mick.
More
of an old school thing to say.
I have
Mick.
a friend called Annalise that I call Anal. So that's a nickname.
I have a friend called Lana whose name backwards is Anal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, shout out to Anal. You know who you are. Wow, what a shout out. First shout out of the podcast.
To Anal.
To Annalise.
Wow. Well, speaking...
To Annalise and Dan. Yeah. You know Dan? You know he comes to Melbourne every now and then?
Yeah, I know Dan. I know Dan. Cool. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway.
I don't... Okay.
All right, let's introduce why we're here and what we're doing. We went on a tangent, but I expect that's going to happen a lot. That's the whole deal of the podcast is you just talking. This could be really good. This could be really shit. I don't know.
I guess we're prepared for every eventuality when it comes to this.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're a bit of a tangent guy.
Oh, yeah, I'm a super tangent guy. Since I was a kid, people are like, you need to be in radio or TV just because I just talk so much shit.
He never shuts up.
My old agent said I had a good face for radio.
Ah, yeah.
Shout out to Dylan, my old agent. Respect.
Did you just say your old agent?
Yeah, my first talent agent was Dylan Gullery.
Oh, what do you know?
Yeah.
Face for radio, huh? And here you are.
Yeah, here I am. I actually work in radio now too, so that's something.
That is something.
Yeah, all right. We're on another tangent again. But no, actually, I want to bring it back to that. We don't know what we're doing. We just mocked all of this up. Look, I'll give you an idea. This is our B camera here.
It's not even on, first of all.
I'm turning it on. This is our secondary camera. So I'll give you a bit of an idea of what we're working with here. This is just a spare room in the apartment we live in. And we've set up all this equipment. And there's Jess there. And we've got this big white back... Here, this screen flips around. We've got this big white backdrop that Jess uses as like a backdrop for her self-tapes, her auditions, show reels, all of that sort of stuff.
All the stuffs.
But I thought it'd be a cool idea to have the A camera and the B camera because like in the future we can invite guests on and they can sit on these chairs over there and we have another microphone stand and we have more microphones. So we can have like an interactive show. Yeah.
So basically we've got a little studio set up in the apartment that we live in. And yeah, we have the means, the knowledge to do all of this stuff. Yeah.
And we're doing it. We're giving it a crack, but we don't know how it's going to turn out. So don't expect anything great.
But I think that's one important thing about young creatives and being in the creative industry is so many people are so afraid to just go out and give something a shot. Kind of because, and as well, like I've never really been on a podcast. I don't really know what we're doing. But
me neither.
And if it doesn't work, so what? Try something else. And I feel like that's something that's going to never count against you if you're going out, you're, as Brayden would say, sending it and you're getting something done and you're just doing it.
Yeah. And, but I think why we wanted to do this was to talk about our creative journey because we are both young creatives. But we haven't really made it yet. You know, we're on the rise. We're upcoming. Well, I think we are. I don't know.
And that's part of it. We don't really know if we are or not. And no one does. Like you hear a lot of like interviews, stories, like a lot of attention goes to people who have made it, who have created something and who have, been successful in that. But you never really hear about what it's like before then. Sure, you can interview the people who have had success and be like, what was life like before them? But they're still viewing that through the lens of their own success. What about without the success? If you haven't had success and don't know if you will, that's a whole nother ballgame. Because it's easy to look back and be like, oh yeah, I was struggling, ha ha ha, I'm a millionaire. But what happens if you don't ever make it? And I think we're in the same boat as a lot of young creatives, especially in Melbourne or wherever really. I don't think it's really confined to one place. But I
guess this is considered like the creative hub of our home country, Australia. I feel like a lot of young people who do want to be creative in some way and make a career of it and get money for it, we're sort of drawn to Melbourne. Because we're not from Melbourne, like you're
That's
from
true.
Adelaide.
I'm from Adelaide. Yeah. Brayden's from the Gold Coast.
The Goldie GC, brah. We were just having a chat this morning at the coffee shop about like ideas in general. It's pretty easy to have an idea, but to actually execute the idea and make it happen is a whole nother thing. And it's often not, well, this is what you hear, not the most creatively talented or gifted people who make it. It's the people who get used to acting and executing on the ideas that they have.
And failing.
Yeah, and failing and repeating. And I think the sort of situation I'm in now where I do a lot of creative work that I do get paid for. Don't get me wrong, I'm not full-time or successful, I have like a full-on career, but I am consistently doing creative work and I'm surviving off the money for now. And I think a lot of that, the reason I've sort of got here is because I got really comfortable with failing regularly publicly. Like I've made a lot of shit and a lot of the stuff hasn't taken off at all. I made like a complete 5-part web series, like 10, 15-minute episodes that I crowdfunded just $1,000 for. This is back in uni. And me and my friend Adam, we wrote this entire story and we casted actors and we got a crew and I bought all this equipment off eBay. Spent like 2 years making this show. Like 5 episodes, like an hour's worth of original narrative that we created. We spent 2 years making because we were all studying uni degrees at the time. And I put on screenings and I put it online and just no one watched it. Just nothing. And like, that's super defeating. And then you could look at that at the end of the journey and be like, well, fuck. We're swearing on this podcast, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck it. We're trying to be real. We want to be authentic and honest. Anyway, I got to the end of the journey and I was like, I felt like a failure. I'm like, I've just made this show, but no one's interested. No one's watching it.
And especially with creative work, because it's an original content, it almost feels like your soul's being bared, you know? And if people look on that dismissively or like, this is garbage, it really hits you and it really gets you in there. Yeah. I don't know. It's a very vulnerable place to be in when you put, even with like visual art, if someone's like, that's garbage, and you're like, this is literally the inner workings of my soul that I've just transcribed onto this piece of paper, onto this like, in a sculpture, onto this canvas, whatever it is, and someone's dismissive of that, and it gets you because it's personal.
Yeah.
And that can be very defeating, I think.
Absolutely. Because I think a lot of us, when we're starting out, we put a lot of ourselves into our creative work. Like that show I was just mentioning, it was about me and Adam's life going to university and like in our 20s, but we don't quite feel like we're adults yet. So we're going to call it twenteen originally. So it's like feeling like you're in your 20s, but you still feel like a teenager and you're like immature and you don't want the responsibilities and you can't follow things through. So it came out of that, and a lot of it was just like me and Adam's sort of life, but then we dramatized from there. And you're right, like you feel defeated if like the market hasn't accepted what you've put out. They're like, oh, well, they don't accept me. This gear is from like Audi.
What?
Yeah, you know.
Audi sell like audio equipment?
Well, this is the thing, the brilliance of Audi. You know that middle aisle?
Oh, yeah.
There's like just different shit every time you walk in. And I just train myself to like, whenever I see an Audi, I'm like, just walk down the middle aisle, see what's on offer, little bargains.
Oh, I feel like you either buy something and you're like, I immediately regret this. What the hell am I going to do with this? Or you pick up an absolute gem.
A gem, yeah. A bloody gem. But no, I got these microphones from Audi. They're like $10 each. And
What?
it came with these XLR cables.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so this is an Audi setup. Shout out Audi, our
Shout out
first
to
sponsor.
Audi, our main sponsor.
Yeah,
Who's not sponsoring us at all, but they should.
No, they're not sponsoring us, but inadvertently they have sponsored us by giving us some low-priced gear.
That we can afford.
Yeah, and that microphone stand, I think that's from Audi too.
Really? What the fuck?
Yeah,
Audi.
I know.
Audi for the win.
It's that middle aisle in Audi. But yeah, anyway, my point is this is a complete DIY setup. There will be mistakes, there will be issues. But what
We're really
we are...
selling it. We're really selling
Yeah,
it.
oh yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know really how to use the equipment. Things keep fucking up, but I don't even know.
But it's like that with everything. Like if I feel
Trial and error.
And even when you get to the top level of the game in whatever you're doing, whatever industry, you realize that even though they have all this money, they have all these resources, they're still just DIYing it too. But it just feels like better because they have the support of departments and they have like a little ecosystem. But I think being a young creative, it's more of like a journey of being an entrepreneur. You're sort of like got to figure shit out. Like we have to have the technical knowledge on how to set this up. Then we could have the creative knowledge on like how should we structure a program that's like entertaining and formative and somewhat expressive, like we're talking about our lives. And it feels like you're on an entrepreneurial journey as like a young creative. And like just us talking about me picking up cheap gear, or always being on the lookout for stuff that can help my production journey. That's a part of it. And it's just like, what equipment can I get that's just good enough to do what I want to do, but I'm not breaking the bank. You know, I'm still allowing to live my lifestyle and not... Because a lot of people spend insane amount of money on gear and equipment. But then if you're not regularly using it and creating, it's like, it's a bit of a waste of money. And then you're putting yourself back, and then you're putting yourself in a position where you have to go and earn a bunch of money to keep funding this equipment.
Yeah, in a job that you don't like.
Yeah, where I was like, I want to find equipment that's like cheap, but it's still good, and you can just pull off what you need to do. And a lot of my equipment is like that. It's just enough to do what I want to do. No more, no less.
Our podcast is called The Zig and the Zag with Jess and Brayden, and the idea behind the name was we were actually sitting having coffee and we were talking about our journeys and the journeys that a lot of young creatives have. And it is a bit of a zigzag. You know, you go up, something's going right, you're like, yes, like, you know, I got a job in the industry, or I got a role in a short film or a bit part or something, and you'll be like, yes, it's going up, and then that's over and you'll kind of fall from the high, or, you know...
it's the highs and lows of being a creative and coming up through it.
And you feel like you're just zigzagging, like you're going up, down, up, down, up, down. And it's only when you stop and you look back, you see that there is a general upward trend.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see sometimes unless you actually stop and reflect. Like I've been living in Melbourne for 3 years now. I'm an actor and I moved down for acting school. I finished, I was auditioning, I've got an agent, did all the things I was supposed to do. And I was like, well, haven't had my like big break or whatever they call it, you know?
Yeah.
And it gets really disheartening at times, especially when you're working a job that's not what you want to do because of the flexible hours, so that you can, you know, be able to go to auditions that you're not even really getting put forward for. And it can be really disheartening. And when you stop and think back, which is something I did recently, I realized, holy shit, like I've come a long way. I've learned a lot. I've met some cool people. We've made some really good original content. And I think that's a common thing with young actors. You know, you go through acting school and then you go get an agent and you're like, cool, I'm going to sit back and wait for this shit to come to me. And most of the work that I have had, I've either found myself through just people that I've met through really good like networking, or through stuff we've created. Like I met Brayden. When did we meet?
I think we met late last year, around November.
It's only been a year. And I was actually on his web series that he was creating. He just moved to Melbourne for a job. And then the job finished up and he was like, cool, I'm going to
do my own thing. Yeah. And it's like I'm sure a lot of you who will watch this probably know about it. Pine View. It's like a sketch comedy series we just put on Facebook. It's largely improv, but there's still like a lot of narrative behind the direction that we control it in. But yeah, Jess came in and I met her through doing that. And it was through friends of friends, because you all went to the same acting school together. And you were awesome. You came in and you killed it. And I was like, yeah, that's sweet. going to use her again.
Yeah.
And it was great. And it was good. And it's great because you already had a relationship with the actors I was working with. So you sort of came in and worked well with them immediately.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, like creative projects, a lot of the time, it's so much better to work with people you know and friends. But like you can become friends through creative projects. Like you and me literally became friends through making a video together. And now I live with you. The zig and the zag, the ups and the downs. And a lot of times you feel like giving up and it does get tough. And you're like, fuck, I wish I just took a job in marketing. You know, I have a uni degree in communications and PR.
I have a uni degree in science.
Why are we doing this?
I know. And then for some reason, we've both gravitated towards the creative life. And I think that means a lot of sacrifices. Like I'll go home, I'll catch up with all my friends and they're lawyers and they're doctors and they have a occupational therapist. They all have a really, they've made some awesome moves in their career and they look at me and they're like, oh yeah, you're still a bartender. You still work in hospitality. Yeah. And it's a bit disheartening because I feel like it's hard to understand. And I'll be like, yeah, but I've come this far. I've done all these projects. Were any of them paid? No. Yeah. Oh. So I feel like it's hard for people to get.
It is because we live in a capitalistic society and money is used as a measure of growth. And in the creative world, it's, the arts, there's not a lot of profit unless you're at the top. Yeah. Because like movies can be made for 30 mil and then they can gross over 100 mil. So they can make shitloads of money at the top. But in the areas and when we're upcoming and we're not yet professionals, but we're sort of working our way there's not a lot of money. No,
and you have to self-fund a lot of the stuff that you do. And it's honestly... Like I was in a show for Melbourne Fringe, Adelaide Fringe and Melbourne Comedy Fest, the same show. We just kind of did a little tour of it. And it was completely self-funded. It was myself and two others. And we ended up making a loss of like $1,000. And for a young creative,
How many shows were there on your tour?
Ooh. It was all up about 6 months with a couple of gaps here and there. Yeah. But we did... around 30 to 50 shows, I'd say.
Wow. So and this is performing live. This isn't like where you film a video once and you can just play it as many times as you want. Like you only did the performance once. Yeah. With live shows like you're doing, it's like a 50-minute show, right? Yeah. A 2-person 50-minute show. Yeah. And you've done 30 to...
Probably more than 30 to...
More than 30 to 35 shows. Of those performances over the course of 6 months. Yeah. And you guys lost $1,000.
That's correct. Fuck. And it was a lot. It was a good learning experience, but it's tough. And it was myself, another actor, and we had a producer in who was the writer of the show. And the three of us really pushed it.
It was a good show. I saw it at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. It was a great show. And you guys were so good. And I was like, because I wasn't expecting it. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I don't watch a lot of live theatre. I'm very film, movie guy, TV shows. So I don't watch a lot of live stuff. So I don't know what I was expecting. But I went and watched it and I was like, yeah, that was sick. And you guys killed it. And it was funny. Awesome. It was a great show.
Yeah, well, I came in it as a comedian from the comedy
You got to angle the mic closer to you.
Okay.
Or no, you can just tilt it a bit. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I came in it as a comedian from the comedy side of things. And I mean, it was a very invaluable experience. I learned a lot about how to actually get a show up and running, how to tour a show, how to do all the logistical side of things, which I never really did before. And it was a great learning experience, but it was tough. Yeah. It was tough. And after all of it, we had a net loss, which is difficult. And if you're a young creative, and it's really disheartening after all of that, we got some really good reviews, we got some good feedback, but we lost money. And none of it was obviously paid. We didn't give ourselves any money. All of the profit we made from the first two went into funding the next tour, Yeah. And
it's tough when you're in it, but looking back, like you said, it was a great learning experience. And in a 5 to 10 year window, you're like, yeah, that was valuable. But right now, or going through the 6 months of it, it must be tough. I was going to bring it up before. It's like most people overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year and they underestimate what they can achieve in 10. And I think what's imperative about being a creative person and doing all these projects, some where you lose money, some that are free, You have to understand that you're in it for the long run. You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And although all this shit may not be working out right now, all the steps you're taking, you can connect the dots looking back and be like, that trajectory helped me become the level I'm at today. But it's quite hard to do that because it takes reflecting and gratification and just being like, yep, this helped me. Like I've done a lot of short films, short docos, that web series I mentioned, and I made no money. If anything, it cost me money to make all of those things. But that
and then
was
you'd have
like,
people coming and asking you, well, why would you do that if you made no money? Obviously, it's not working. You should try something else. And how do you deal with when people come to you and say shit like that?
I mean, when I was younger, I used to fight against them. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is all a part of it. Like, it's a step forward. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But like looking back, I get where they're coming from. And I definitely needed more of a sense of like, to stop giving away my time and my energy for free. I think there's a beginning phase where you're learning and you're not good. So you do need to build up your hours and be like the apprentice or the intern and develop your skills and develop your craft. And some people aren't even willing to do that. And there's like several years where you might have to work for free or do videos for free or editing or act. And like just to be a part and get exposure and to try different projects. But I think it takes the knowingness within you to realize you're at a point where, all right, I've learnt enough now. I'm pretty confident with what I'm doing. I know I'm capable. I could probably make whatever video people want me to make. I'm across all the styles and I feel like I could do it to a level that is quite professional. I don't want to work for free anymore. I'm going to charge money. You know, because I need to get paid for this. This is something they can't do. They're coming to me. Plus, not to mention, I have thousands of dollars of gear that they don't have. So I now feel comfortable charging. But it took a while to get to that point. And everyone around you doesn't understand when you're working for free. They're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? But I had a knowingness within me. I'm like, I'm not yet comfortable enough to charge thousands of dollars for that because I don't want that pressure of having to deliver. I just want the knowledge that I can actually pull it off. And once I've done it a few times for free and I know I can pull it off, then the third or fourth time, I'll charge money because I now know I'm capable of doing it.
And I think that's an important thing. I think, especially with young creators being an actor as well, we do a lot of work for free, a lot of student films. And what I've kind of come to realize is that you need to get something out of it. And a lot of the time I've done a bunch of short films and they're like, footage for your show reel. But when you get the edited copy of it, it's not actually usable for you. And I think with doing stuff for free, you have to be getting something out of it. And I did a bunch of free short films last year and I got so much out of it just in terms of learning, in terms of being on a real set. Like they were using $70,000 cameras and it was for an honors student university film. I did a few of them. And I learned what it was like on a real set, on getting a call sheet and all of that stuff and filming hours, going over stuff like so many things like that I wouldn't have learned from an acting class. I got so much out of it and I didn't get paid for any of the work that I did. But, I got a lot out of it. And when I sat and I reflected, it was beneficial to me. And I think that's something that's hard to distinguish a line between because I also do, I film like self-tapes for actors, which are filmed auditions that you send off. And I was doing a lot of that for free as well until Brayden actually confronted me on it and said, what are you doing? Don't do this for free. You're good at it and you're not actually getting anything out of it. So I think if you're not getting anything out of it, then charge, get something out of it. So whatever work you do creatively, you want to be, it sounds a bit selfish, but it's not necessarily, you just want to benefit. So whether it's a learning that you're gaining, whether it's money, whether it's like connections, whether it's networking, meeting new people, or whether it's developing a skill that you haven't, maybe, I don't know, like comedy, drama, like a new genre that you haven't explored yet. I think that's all.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
It's just hard to think like that and everyone's like, oh, well, that's selfish. But I think it comes down to like avoiding burnout. Like personally and creatively, professionally, whatever you want to call it. If you're spreading yourself thin and you're doing too much, eventually you're going to run out of energy and you're going to run out of whatever it is that is your flow that keeps you going, your momentum, you'll just get defeated and become overwhelmed. And I know I've reached burnout a lot. Being an independent filmmaker, I'm not partnered up with anyone. It's just been me a lot of the time. I get help here and there from people, but I shoot, I edit, I produce, I publish, I like all of this stuff at a very independent level. And I've taken on big projects for brands, or my uni brought me on to make like a doco series. And I take on big projects by myself a lot because I'm excited by them and I like them. But I often would get burnt out and overwhelmed and then just stop. And I just couldn't work for like weeks or months. And I'm like, I need to just give myself time to build up my natural energy and like go hang out with friends, go on a date with a girl, just go get drunk.
Yeah.
Or whatever, go for a surf at the beach, to just nourish myself and give myself like self-care so I'm ready to go back out and attack the work that I do. And that's something huge. Being an artist and coming up, self-care is huge. And it took me a while to learn that. It took me till I was like 24 to step back and not associate myself as like just a creative artist. Like, we're people too. We have lives. We have parents, family, siblings, girlfriends, boyfriends, flatmates. We're out there living a life. You're a person first, and then you're an artist, creative thing second.
Well, not even second. They just coexist.
Yeah, but you're going to be careful.
We're not automatons. We can't function at that level. And I'm definitely, I'm definitely guilty of that, like sending it too hard. And I think having hobbies outside your creative world is such a beneficial thing. And it's hard to sometimes see that, especially when you're so goal driven and you're like, no, this is what I want to be. I have to focus 100% of my energy all the time on this one thing. That is what leads to burnout. And having other hobbies that you enjoy doing, other things here and there that give you life, give you like purpose, give you satisfaction, they're especially important for when the creative stuff goes wrong. So if I have a really bad audition, or I don't know, you have a bad day on set, or something falls through for you creatively, it really brings you down. And like we were saying, it's very vulnerable to show your artistic works. And when that's not received by someone, it does bring you down. And having other things in your life that ground you is really important. And I think that that's not acknowledged enough in the creative industries.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not laziness either.
Yeah. I mean, I had a huge moment. I'll touch on this, where a few years ago, I was traveling to Melbourne to attend this event called VidCon. Okay. I don't know
if I heard this story. Have I heard this?
Maybe not.
You got it.
VidCon's basically this huge video convention. This camera's on low battery already. I'll just turn that camera off. We got the main camera here.
The OG.
Yeah. So VidCon's this huge video convention run by YouTube. And it's got all these top level video creators and YouTubers and everyone in panels and discussions and about content. And then all these companies come and like, how can we advertise through young creators and their content? And like, it's trying to join capitalism in the creative world.
That's a bit fucked.
It's interesting though. It's good. And I was like,
I mean, if it's going to generate profit to allow us to continue doing our work, I guess it's not really that.
Yeah. Well, this is for online video creators, specifically YouTubers. And at the time, I actually gave YouTube a crack. I started vlogging. I started doing videos. I was like, I want to be like a vlogger, an influencer. I'm going to build a following. I built like 50 or 60 subscribers.
Yeah,
and
that's more than me.
Yeah, well, that world was just interesting, but it was hard for me to stay consistent. I think I made like a video a week for a couple of months, and I just like edited travel videos of me going to Japan with my friends or snowboarding. But I went to this convention, like at the time, this is a few years ago, I wasn't living in Melbourne. I was living on the Gold Coast, and I flew to Melbourne and paid money, attended this event. And I had my camera and I was like filmmaking and traveling. It was exciting. But I got to this convention and there's just like thousands of people who are all like clones of me. And suddenly I didn't feel so special or great. Because in my hometown, like I was the video guy. I'd hang out in my friend group and with my iPhone and I'd just follow us around and just make little edits and videos and put them on socials. I was just addicted to just capturing and putting. So in my world on the Gold Coast, my bubble, I was like known as that video guy. And then I go to Melbourne, I go to the convention center to this VidCon event, and then just everyone's walking around with a camera and everyone's a filmmaker. And that was like full on for me. And then I was like, I didn't even want to pick up my camera and record. I don't know what it was. It was weird.
Because you wanted to be different.
Yeah, I wanted to be
always been
different.
and
then I
made you
found
different.
out, but I was in a niche where everyone was like me. And I freaked out a bit because I thought, oh, this is my thing. This is what makes me unique and great, because I was too tied up in that as my identity.
Yeah.
But I went to a few panels and all of the top level creators were all touching on this word called self-care. And I'd never heard it before. And I think it hit me at the perfect time in my life where I needed to exercise a lot more self-care and stop just sending it creatively. Because I was just doing so many projects. Like I was trying to be a YouTuber. I was doing a docu-series. I even tried to start a podcast show in like 2015 with my friends. And we just got really drunk in my bedroom at my parents' house and just moved the mattress up against the wall and just recorded like a 3-hour nonsense show where we're just talking about like, what animal would you choose to be in your afterlife? I don't know. Some of it was pretty funny. But anyway, I was trying to do all these things and like make a short film and all this and all that I had forgotten to take care of myself. And I don't know, that experience just really changed things for me. And
what did it change? What did you implement?
It was just around like not like, oh, I'm a filmmaker, that's what makes me special and great. Like everyone's out there doing it too. What's your unique perspective? What's your life you can tell? And then also like, who are you as a person? Take care of yourself. And then stop always trying to be a filmmaker, like start to be a person. And then for work, every now and then you're going to make a film.
So I feel like you were trying to mold yourself into the image of a filmmaker rather than kind of nurture the growing self in you and let that come out through the medium of film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You were kind of doing it backwards.
Yeah. And it's like, I didn't have much to say. It's like, and I get why people wouldn't watch my videos. It's like, I was a very underdeveloped and like a late bloomer in a source that I wasn't allowing myself to live a life, and I was holding back because I was just making videos. But it's like, if I do live more of a life, my video is going to be way more interesting to watch.
It's funny, they talked about that in acting school as well. And they were like, shield yourself from life experience. And I had a particular teacher, and, you know, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with what they were saying, but they were saying you can't teach acting to children because they don't have life experience to go on. But I mean, I have a personal theory that children are just naturally great actors because they don't have any emotional blockages.
Yeah, right.
But that's a whole nother topic, conversation for another time perhaps. But I think self-care is definitely important. And you can't, especially for, I found it incredibly important in every kind of way in my life, because I am not a person who used to ever self-care, and I used to just go hard as I can, like head to the grindstone. I kind of thought that self-care was a whole bunch of bullshit and not necessary until it all caught up with me. And you can't really let yourself creatively, or even just, you can't perform at your peak if you don't allow yourself to rest and recover and recuperate. And it sounds like such a simple thing. Yeah. I just banged the table and probably ruined the audio. It sounds like such a simple thing, but I think it's so hard, especially in our Western society and our culture that we have, which is just work. Especially when you are trying to compete against the millions of other young creatives. It's like, what can I do that sets me apart? But you're not going to produce your best work if you're stressed, if you're doing a million things at once, and you need to sit and focus. And that's one thing that Brayden often keeps me in check with. Yeah,
only because I still do it, and it's bad. But as long as we can be aware of these sorts of things, we can try and keep ourselves to it.
And catching yourself being like, oh shit, I'm doing that thing again. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's, I mean, we're coming to, it's got 50 seconds left. So we've probably, this is like 30, 40 minute mark.
Maybe.
So that quickly, I'll do a bit of a wrap up of everything. I mean, this is what the podcast is going to be like. Me and Jess talking about our personal experiences, being upcoming creatives, the ups and the downs. In the future, we are looking at getting guests on, like other creative people who have started projects and had success with them.
Their journey, even if they're not quite successful yet, they're on the cusp of something.
Yeah. And then we'll be doing others. I thought of a funny segment where you and me could do reaction videos to some of our earlier work. Like, I want to watch some of your
Oh my God,
yeah.
Like podcast 10, we look at podcast 1. And
we got 10 seconds left. Is that 10 seconds?
8,
right.
7,
So
6.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. We're going to put it on YouTube and Facebook.